Good evening and a really warm welcome to our A-level options evening. I apologise for not being able to do it in person again, but we are hoping that in the future we will be able to get you into a live event in school. But thank you so much for joining us online this evening. There is going to be a lot of information that is shared with you this evening and shared with your daughters. It is a very exciting time when they start to choose their A-levels, but it is obviously quite a long process, and we start it early so that the girls can have those discussions with their class teachers, with members of staff that they haven't had previously, and also opportunities for them to talk to sixth form pupils who are currently doing those subjects. So we will make sure that all of those things happen so that when the girls do make their A-level choices, they are absolutely making informed choices. But this is the start of the process, and we have Mr. Owen, who's going to talk at length this evening about the sixth form, and we've also got Miss Horwood, who is on the chat function. So if you have any questions as we go along, please do put them into the chat function, and we will make sure that we come back to them either during the session as Mr. Owen is talking or at the end of the session. Before we talk about the sixth form, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on COVID and the exams for year 11 at the end of this academic year. So you will know that we've had a number of pupils in and out, particularly in year 11 with COVID, and some of your daughters have been attending lessons online, and that reflects the national picture really, and there's certainly an increase in numbers over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks, and we are hoping that the half term will act as a natural break to that. But with that in mind, the exam boards and Ofqual have said that they are going to make decisions on the exams in February when they're going to let us know with regards to what's going to be included in the exams. At the moment, exams will go ahead as normal, and we are confident that that will certainly happen this academic year. But there will be some adjustments to some of the GCSEs that the girls are taking. So, for example, we know already that in art there won't be a formal exam. It will be just the coursework that is used for the art exam. But some of the other exam boards are not going to let us know until February how they're going to pare back potentially some of the content with the girls and pupils across the country having missed various parts of their education over the course of the last 18 months and continue to miss parts of their education. So we will update you with the relevant information as and when we receive it. But I think the general rule of thumb needs to be that the girls will be sitting exams as normal this summer. There may well be some adjustments to the grade boundaries based on the experiences that the pupils have had over the course of the last 18 months. But we are aware that the exam boards do want to get back to that 2019 level that we had a few years ago. But there will be some adjustments to grade boundaries. So as I say, we will keep you informed as we go along, but the girls very much have to prepare for exams as normal this academic year. I'm going to hand you over now to Mr. Owen, who's going to talk to you about our sixth form and the amazing sixth form team that we have and the opportunities that the girls have when they join the sixth form. And as I say, this is the start of quite a long process, and there'll be many opportunities for you to speak to the various members of staff along the way. I'm often asked the question about how many girls go into the sixth form and how many girls are turned away from the sixth form. In my whole time here, we have never turned a girl away from the sixth form. It's more about making sure that they are accessing the courses that are right for them to ensure that they're going to be successful on the courses that they choose. We have altered the entry requirements for the sixth form, which Mr. Owen will talk about, but please don't be concerned about your daughter not getting into the sixth form. As I say, I haven't turned anybody away from the sixth form in my time here, and the vast majority of girls do come on to our sixth form. Mr. Owen, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you. Thanks. And John, can I have the next slide, please? So my name's John Owen. I am the Director of Sixth Form at Surbiton High School, and my role is to overview the whole of Sixth Form, both pastorally and academically and strategically as well. The plan for tonight is I'm going to give you, it will be a little bit of a whistle-stop tour through the options process, give you a sort of starting point for that. Obviously, we don't need the students' options at this time, so there's plenty of time to talk about options and decide what A-levels any student would want to do going forward. But tonight is the start of that process, because we've always discovered that the longer we have to have those discussions, the better it is to get those right at the end. So John, can I have the next slide, please? Now, throughout the whole of my presentation, you'll hear me saying play to your strengths. And there's two parts to that. One is know your strengths and your interests. And secondly, making option choices to play to those. So we want all of the year 11s to really think about what they're good at, what they enjoy doing, what they will find more straightforward, but challenging at the same time, and using that personal knowledge to go forward, choosing the A-levels that they want to take in our sixth form. Next slide, please. Now, unlike many schools, we don't have a set of option blocks from which you must choose your subjects. And Mr. Eakins, being an absolute timetabling genius, is able to put together timetables for students based on the options that they choose, rather than having to choose options from particular pots. And to aid students with their sort of choices and to keep things nice and open and to fit them to the individual's needs, we have a number of different A-level pathways that we offer. And on the next slide, I'll show you those. So we have a 3 A-level pathway, which is what I would say the majority of students do. Almost all universities and higher education institutions in the UK and abroad will make their offers based on 3 A-levels. 3 A-levels is all that you need and require. But there is sometimes an opportunity to expand that knowledge away from the A-levels, and we also offer an EPQ to do that, and I'll talk about the extended project in a few minutes. Some students will feel that they want to carry on with some maths learning, but they don't want to take on the full maths A-level, and maybe they're doing 3 science A-levels or something that has a high maths content, and they may choose to take the AS maths alongside their 3 A-levels, and that's timetabled as well. We also offer 3 A-levels and AS further maths. For any student who's taking maths A-level, they can add the further maths in as well. And we also offer a 4 A-level programme. So in terms of pathways, it's about choosing the right pathway for yourself and what will work best for you. And next slide, please. And later on this evening, you'll have access to all of the subject videos discussing the subjects in detail, what they are, what you'll study, and you'll have an opportunity to look at those from the sixth form prospectus that's also available online. Next slide, please. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the sixth form, and then I'm going to get into the options process a little bit more detail. So in terms of the sixth form, it's set up with myself and an assistant director of sixth form and 2 heads of year as well. And we also have lots of mentors and a leadership coach, etc. And I'll take you through those towards the end of my presentation. The teaching and pastoral care is carefully monitored. We look at it very carefully. We carry out learning wanders and check in with teaching, and it is excellent, and it's recognised as being excellent both in the quality teaching and the pastoral provision that we have. And the careers guidance is also second to none, and you'll hear from Mr. McDermott later. On top of that, we also have outstanding facilities. I'm going to show you some pictures of those now. So the pictures are of the newly refurbed sixth form centre. We have a large study area upstairs, which your daughters will know, and you're very welcome to come in and have a look around the sixth form at any stage and see those. It's also air conditioned, which is lovely during the summer months. The careers department is embedded in the sixth form study area as well, so that means the students have access to careers guidance, and it's very easy to access that. And the common room has also recently been refurbished, and we'll show you some photos of that. And again, you're very welcome to come in and have a look at the facilities we have at any stage. If you just contact the school or my sixth form PA, we'll arrange that for you to come in and have a look. Obviously, being a virtual event, you won't get that opportunity tonight, but once we're back fully open for visitors, we can do that. Next slide, please. OK, so just to tell you our grade distribution over the last 5 years, we've used 5-year grade distributions just to level out some of the bumps over the last few years in terms of grades, but our results are outstanding, sort of round about just over 90% A star to B, and those are the grades that really give students access to the best courses, the top course in the country in higher education. So we're very proud of what our students have achieved consistently over the last 5 years with the help and support of their teachers, but a very, very strong set of grades across all of our subjects. Next slide, please. And in terms of higher education, around about 90% of our students will go on to attend some of the most competitive universities, say in the Russell Group or the Times Top 10 or medical or dental school and vet school. But bear in mind those other 10% may well be going off to top art schools or top drama courses as well. And last year, 100% of our students made their first choice university. And if I'm honest with you, we push their first choice quite aspirationally, so we're really proud of what they achieved. We had 8 students going to Oxbridge last year colleges, even though it's becoming more and more competitive for those colleges, and 9 students made their offers for medicine, dentistry or veterinary science. We have around about a 95% offer rate for those courses, so the students that apply, around about 95% of them have at least one offer and then go on to study that at university. This year we've got another around about 10 students applying. Okay, next slide please. Now, sixth form, although we're going to be focusing quite a lot tonight on academics and A-levels, it is a bit more than that. And Mr. Sands, who works for us, talks about the taxi test, the ability to be left with a client at the end of an evening after a works event and being able to have a conversation with that client, and that client still being yours on Monday morning. And a big part of sixth form life is about preparing you to pass the taxi test, not just an A-level test. And I'll look at some of the things that we do in the sixth form to help our students prepare for that part of working life beyond school. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about A-levels in a bit more detail now, and I think it's very, very important to remember we've got playing to your strengths is one of our mantras, and another one is that A-levels are not just big versions of GCSE. What your experience is of a subject at GCSE can be quite different to how it is at A-level, and there are some subjects which carry on from GCSE to A-level more and become more similar than other subjects where there's a big difference between the GCSE and the A-level. So it's very important that when students are looking at A-level options, they're not just choosing off their GCSE experience, but they're choosing it off what they're actually going to study at A-level. So for instance, I'm a biologist. We don't do very much biochemistry in the biology GCSE, and the A-level we start with a very large module on biochemistry. So it's important that students know the A-levels that they're choosing and they don't just choose them off their names. Next slide, please. So also bear in mind that we do also offer some new A-levels in the sixth form. So we have business and economics that aren't offered at GCSE, psychology, sociology, again offered by the same department. Philosophy comes in, classical civilization, history of art, and I should have put PE on here as well. Okay, so we've got a number of different new A-levels which are worth exploring and understanding. And of course, many of the young people in our school won't have experienced these at GCSE level or have an understanding of them. So again, that requires some investigation going forward. Next slide, please. So a few years ago, we did have something called the Informed Choices document that was produced for helping students choose A-levels. And this is almost like a wish list of subjects, like the perfect ultimate collection. But our experience is that some of the information in these booklets isn't particularly good. You'll see this in the 2016-17 edition, and it's sort of petered out a little bit as we started to realise that some of the myths around choosing options for degree level study were sort of still in place. So next slide, please. And we do want to make sure that we bust those myths, that we work on facts and not myths. And I'll show you some information and data as we go through to help you understand how we'll guide your daughters on their option choices. So next slide, please. OK, so one of the first questions I always get asked is, do universities have a preferred list of subjects? And if we show you the next slide, you'll see this is some of the recent offers that we've had. So there's often an assumption for medicine you have to do biology, chemistry and maths, or biology, chemistry and physics. It's certainly not the case, and I'll show you some more information on that in a moment. We have students who often do law, and there's an assumption you must do a written subject. And we're getting students with art offers with art, business and photography as well. Obviously showing an interest in law is what you need to do for your personal statement. For PPE at Manchester, biology, economics and English language. So economics is in there, but no politics, no philosophy, and obviously a world top 50 university for Manchester. And there are also ways to get into things like dentistry with foundation years, where we have students who do just biology with business and economics and other combinations. So there are no hard and fast rules in terms of A-level choices and the choices that might open up after school, because remember, every higher education institution is independent, can make their own decisions. So our guidance has to be relatively general in terms of the guidance that we give. Next slide, please. To study medicine, you must do biology, chemistry and another science or maths. And if we show you the next slide, these are the entry requirements for Cambridge. where it will say to you to have passed chemistry and at least one of biology, physics and maths. So again, you don't have to do biology and chemistry. And underneath there we have Leicester, which includes chemistry or biology and one from a number of other subjects, so maths and psychology. So you'll see that even for medicine, these hard and fast rules that often go round about having to do biology and chemistry are not always the case. Bearing in mind it might open up a few more courses if you do, but if you really don't enjoy chemistry and you want to be a medic, that doesn't mean that you can't go on and do medicine, although I would suggest doing biology and chemistry together if you can. But again, hard and fast rules often don't exist in terms of option choices. Next slide, please. A-level maths needs to study architecture. Well, this is something we faced, and Mrs. Horwood and I had a conversation very recently about this. It's desirable for some courses, but it's absolutely not needed for others. And so it's worth just doing that investigation. If you're interested in architecture, having a look at some of the architecture courses and checking out which A-levels are needed for that, rather than sort of guessing. So here we have the Bartlett, probably one of the top architecture schools in the world. And again, you'll see at the bottom, no A-level requirements at all. They just need a portfolio of creative work. So that could be photography or art or DT. And that is what you need for the Bartlett. And on the next slide, we've got Edinburgh. Again, no specific A-level subjects are required for architecture at Edinburgh. So again, we'll often be faced with, my daughter will be doing maths because she's doing architecture. And we go, well, does she want to do maths? Well, not really, but she's doing it because she wants to be an architect. So again, we'll have individual conversations with you, but throw that net wide in terms of A-level options at the moment in terms of what you might want to study. Okay, next slide, please. Sorry, one more. You can't take A-level philosophy and RS together. You can take a combination of any A-levels that you like. We will try and timetable that for you. We will try. We almost always are able to do that. The question would be, why do you want to take those two subjects that might be quite closely related together? And in fact, in the case of philosophy and RS, I wouldn't say they are that closely related, and therefore it would be absolutely fine. We certainly have students doing business and economics together as well. But I would suggest that you try and cluster your A-levels a little bit if you can, because it's difficult when A-levels are spread quite widely. We'll ask, is economics preferred by universities over business A-level? Well, I interview at UCL Medical School. If you were to offer biology, chemistry and economics, or biology, chemistry and business, it would make absolutely no difference to your application whatsoever, because the third A-level isn't looked at. If you want to apply for an economics degree, then it might be quite useful. If you take a more difficult A-level, universities will choose you over other applicants. Well, our experience is, how do you judge what is a difficult A-level? That's often a sort of implied league table of difficulty versus the fact that the universities are just, and higher education colleges are just offering on the grades that you've got, and often one or two A-levels that line up with it. So again, don't try and choose A-levels because they're more difficult. If I'm honest with you, if you choose A-levels that your daughter's going to find more difficult, you have to accept they're probably likely to get lower grades, and that's probably going to be the thing that stops them getting into university. So it's a balance between what we call A-levels that help you access a course and A-levels that you can access, and it's getting that balance right is really important. Next slide, please. Okay, now we were umming and ahhing to show you this, so I'm going to take a moment and just explain it to you. But all the information that we're giving you is based on the data that we collect up or data that we have access to. And if I show you the next slide, this is the offer rate calculator for geography at Durham. And if you look at the bottom, you'll see that if you are predicted an A in geography, an A in maths and an A in English, you have a 78% chance of getting an offer for that course. This is for the BA in geography, I should hate this to add, not the BSc. If you go on to the next slide, you'll notice that if you take maths out and add a social science subject in there, you actually increase your chance of getting an offer. So this idea that certain subjects might help you get into a university course, particularly we hear this with maths, may not be the case. It obviously would be the case for something like engineering, where you may need maths, but certainly for geography at Durham for the BA course, the data would suggest that you're actually slightly less likely to get an offer. And this is actually mirrored by exactly the same data from Southampton for the same course, geography. So it's really important not to make assumptions about certain A-levels helping you get into university because it may not be the case. Okay, next slide, please. So and keep going, sorry. Okay, so one of the things we do for independent study, because we do think this is very, very important, the students are encouraged to have that curiosity sort of let loose a little bit, is we offer an EPQ. Now, an EPQ, an extended project qualification, is an A-level qualification, but it counts as half of an A-level. And the reason for that is it takes 120 hours to complete an EPQ, whereas an A-level would be 240 hours. So you get half an A-level. 30 hours are spent developing research skills like Harvard referencing, Gantt charts, anything sort of project management based. And then 90 hours are spent developing a 5,000 word dissertation that you'll then present as a project and a presentation. And if I give you some examples of some of the EPQs that have been used before on the next slide, they do cover a wide range of topics. I actually looked after the Does Vitamin C Stop Coughs and Colds EPQ a few years ago. Does everyone have the ability to learn to sing well? I can certainly answer that without doing an EPQ, and the answer is no, because I really can't. But the EPQ allows that sort of extension away from the A level for some students who want to do it. Now, in terms of sort of university offers, some universities may drop a grade for an A at EPQ, but that has to be balanced up with the time spent on the EPQ. So if you want to know more about the EPQ, certainly watch the video on that. It's a good addition to a 3A level curriculum to add that sort of independent balance, particularly if you want to take a subject at higher education that you're not doing as an A level. It's a good way to show an interest in that. So a few years ago, we had a student who wanted to be a fashion designer, and she developed a whalebone corset as part of her EPQ project, and she took it with her to her fashion design interviews, and they thought it was just amazing, and she basically walked through the door of the courses that she went to because she showed that interest. Okay, next slide, please. So just to give you an idea what a 3 and a 4 A-level programme would look like on a timetable, because there's sometimes the assumption that more is better. I think it's worth just considering that 3 A-levels now is a very similar workload to when I was at school of doing 4 A-levels. The A-levels are bigger, slightly bigger textbooks. Our textbooks expanded when the newer A-levels were brought in. So it's often not the case that more is better. Most higher education institutions will offer on 3 A levels. So if you get 4 Bs, that is far worse than getting 3 As. Or if you get 3 Bs, that's better than getting 4 Cs. So again, it's about balancing up the number of A levels and the interest that you have. But that would be a normal timetable, and a student would have some private study periods during the week, normally around about 1 a day. They'd also have 1 completely free period. We give them that in year 12, and PE games on a Wednesday afternoon. If we then switch that to a 4 A level program on the next slide, you'll notice that the timetable gets quite full up. There'll be 1 free period during the week. Games would remain, and that means that there'll be additional homework and additional study. And so quite often we'll find 4 A-level programs are taken by people doing further maths who find the maths quite straightforward, and they find the further maths more challenging. Certainly if you're doing lots of essay subjects, a 4 A-level program could be quite a chunky endeavour to take that on. Okay, next slide, please. So top tips really is choose the subjects that will lead to what you want to do at university. Now, when I say that, for most of you, you probably won't know, and I think it's quite healthy not to know and to be locked on too early onto a university course. But if you think of it like a dartboard, you don't know what the bullseye is, but you're starting over the next few years. You did this in year 9 with your option choices. You're starting to narrow down a little bit towards what you might want to do. So just try and think a little bit in those ways. But definitely play to your strengths. That's really important that you play to your strengths, what you're going to do well at, because you'll often hear me say that the journey through the sixth form is the most important thing. And if you're finding a subject more difficult and you're doing it for I don't know, lots of reasons, you might do a subject that you don't really want to be doing, then you're going to find that journey through the sixth form not as smooth and as easy as it might be for other people. So try and choose subjects that you really love and enjoy, and take that smooth path through. Do consider combinations, try and cluster a little bit with your subjects if you can. If you're choosing A levels from all over the sort of A level spectrum of subjects, that will be quite challenging because you won't get any crossover skills that support each other. And do research the subjects you're opting for. Really do research those, and careers guidance as well is in place if you need it, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. Next slide. So one of the questions I will ask everybody about their A-level options is, which topics in A-level X are you most looking forward to studying? Which topics are you most not looking forward to studying? And how do you feel about the way subject X is assessed? And I had a conversation on GCSE results day when a student was adamant they wanted to study psychology. There was a few sort of alarm bells about their skill set maybe being better in other A-levels, and they couldn't tell me what they wanted to do, why they wanted to study psychology, what was interesting about it, what was difficult. They just said, I want to study psychology. They didn't know what the A-level was at all, and they've chosen it just off the name. I like the idea of studying about how people think. And so it's very important that you dig a little bit deeper, bearing in mind that you're going to spend 240 hours in lessons and probably more, equivalent amount of time outside of school studying a subject. It's worth the hour really digging into those subjects and making sure you understand what they are and how they are put together as a subject to which topics you're going to do. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going to watch a quick video now from Mr. McDermott, who is going to talk to you about the careers provision that he and his department provide. At one stage, he does just mention applications to the sixth form, and I left it in here for a reason, because one of the questions we often get asked is, do I need to apply for a place in the sixth form? And the simple answer is no, you don't need to. Your daughter and you do not need to apply for a place in the sixth form. It's assumed that a place is available for you because it is, and this is really about getting subject choices right to come into the sixth form rather than a place being sort of applied for. So a place is there on hold, so just ignore that comment. It was used for another event, and we thought it was such a good video we didn't want to reshoot the whole thing, just to take that bit out. Okay, can we show that now, please?
Hello, I'm Terry Taylor. I am Director of Careers and Guidance and Head of Oxbridge at Surbiton High School. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our provision in terms of career guidance and university, particularly our provision for competitive pathways. Just a little bit of a background on myself. When I came to Surbiton, I left an organisation called ISCO, which was the Independent Schools Careers Organisation. And in that role, I visited a lot of very well-known independent schools providing career services. And as a result, I was able to bring to Surbiton examples of best practice from around the country, which has enabled us to build a really strong careers department at this school. Evidence of this is that in the Independent School Awards in 2018, we were one of only 3 schools to receive a highly commended award out of over 200 independent school entrants. And then in the same awards in 2021, our department was shortlisted for the New Initiative Award for provision we put in place during the pandemic and lockdowns. In terms of what specific things we do within the careers department, one key thing that we will ask all applicants to the sixth form to complete is the Moresby profile. And we do this because we find it is really helpful in helping students plan their A-level choices and including to pick 3 A-levels that they're going to perform really well in, because we find that for university and indeed for many school leaver programs with top employers, what really counts is 3 consistently strong grades. Throughout sixth form, we also have a program of careers PSHEs where we help students to understand how to explore universities, and we give them some sessions on really getting behind the degrees they're going on to study. So we have a number of sessions where we have split students into potential degree subject groups, and they start actually engaging with the materials they might study at university. We've created something called the Supercurricular Bible, which the link to which will appear on screen now. And I really encourage you to have a look at that, because it is the supercurricular resources, those things outside of A-level, that really help to strengthen our students' university applications. All students will also receive at least one career guidance interview with a full write-up, which will help them think about careers and their university choices and potentially alternatives to university. In addition to the very significant support all students receive, we also have specialist support for those going for particularly competitive pathways. So, for example, people going for medical school may need specialist preparation for the entrance tests, for the interviews, and we do a lot around that, and that is that the success of that is reflected in the fact that we have an at or near 100% success rate for medical school, dental school and veterinary school, meaning that our applicants receive at least one offer per person. We also have extensive support for those applying to art school. You may have seen, if you're interested in art, our art department is extremely strong. And we have students who go off to the top art school, Central St Martin's, and also the top architecture schools, so places like Cambridge, places like the Bartlett at UCL. And finally, I'm in charge of our Oxbridge programme, which is highly successful. Each student gets an individual subject mentor. They get a lot of guidance around their subject choice and with things like admissions tests. And the success of our programme is reflected in the fact that approaching 10% of our Year 13s achieve an Oxbridge offer, which for a school like ours, if you look at our academic profile, I think you will struggle to find another school that matches that. That said, although there is that specialist support in place, because applicants to those institutions require certain extra things in their university applications, the base level of support for all our students, whatever they're applying for, is very, very high indeed. And I think that's reflected in the fact that around 90% of students go on to Russell Group universities or top 10 universities. And that would probably be higher still were it not for the fact that many of our students also go on to the top art schools and music conservatoires, which sometimes sit outside the Russell Group. So I hope you found that informative. You're very welcome to make an appointment to come and see us to discuss your career options, potentially your Moresby profile that you will do if you apply to Surbiton. And we look forward to hopefully welcoming you into the sixth form next year.
Thank you, Mr. McDermott. So the entry requirements are up on the screen, and these are certainly not there to worry you at all. They are guidance, and they are really there to say these are the levels we think a student should get to access certain subjects. But equally, we will go back to classroom teachers. If someone misses an entry requirement, we'll have a conversation. And what one swallow does not make a summer. So if a summer exam doesn't go quite as well, we'll go back and ask classroom teachers who know the students well about access to the subjects that they may be interested in. But as a general rule of thumb, we would be looking at the entry requirements on the screen. And if these worry you at all, if there's any concerns about them, please just drop me a line and we'll have a quick phone call conversation. And hopefully I can relieve some of those stresses and strains. But they are really sort of a guidance of where we think a student should be to make good progress in those subjects at A level. Next screen, please. Next slide. Okay, the timeline. So tonight, obviously, we're talking about the options evening and starting this process off. What we would ask in mid-November, and this is certainly not tying anybody to anything, but it just helps with some forward planning, is that we ask everybody in year 11 to give us an indication of 3 subjects in a reserve or 4 subjects in a reserve that they might be interested in doing at A level. And that forms a basis for a conversation that takes place after the mock examination. So we have the early indications, we have the mock exam results, and then in January, we will start to see every year 11 one-to-one. Somebody in the sixth form team will do that to look at their options and provide some guidance on top of what the careers department have already offered. There's a year 11 parents evening as well in February. It's a great opportunity to ask subject teachers about a subject at A level that your daughter might be interested in. We then ask for the submission of A level choices in February, so we can start to put the timetable together. And as I said, because we build the timetable from scratch every year, it's great to have those in February so we can start to build the timetable from that point onwards. GCSE results day in August. There will be plenty of the sixth form team and other members of SLT as well in school to help with any changes that students want to make. And I should say for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been pretty much able to make any changes to timetables that we've needed, where students have suddenly had a change of mind since they made their early indications and then their actual firm indications. But the most important thing really is to just explore at this stage, look at possible A level subjects, and then those early indications can be sent in and put to bed until after the mocks, when we'll have some conversations. But if at any stage you're starting to think, oh, I want to think about A level options, I'm not quite sure, then please do drop us a line. We're a little bit UCAS siloed at the moment for the next 3 or 4 weeks, but after that, certainly if you want to have a conversation with a member of the sixth form team about A level options, please do contact us and we can always arrange a quick phone call or a Teams conversation from there. Just show the next slide, please. Okay, and we'll go a bit quicker actually this. Can we go next slide, please? So one of the things that I really must point out, because we've been very sort of academically focused tonight talking about A level options, is that particularly at the moment in year 11, I'm sure your daughters are quite worried about mock exams and exams next summer and things like that. And the A-level options shouldn't really be adding to that worry. This is a gentle process and we have plenty of time for it. Tonight's the start of that. And certainly we want to make sure that we continue with that perma work into the sixth form as well, and making sure the students who come through our sixth form do not feel hot-housed, do not feel worried, but feel comfortable and confident as they come through the sixth form, and that they're well supported and looked after. And next slide, please. And certainly, we'd like to live out our Chancellor to wellbeing. We have excellent form tutor support in the sixth form, with the form tutors having quite small form groups of somewhere around about 8 to 12 students. We continue to run our sport and PE as well. Games afternoons are running for everybody. Games afternoons has Pilates, Nuffield gym, yoga. It's not cross country at all, unless someone wants to do cross country. Hockey and all the other areas are running as well. And charity is a big part of sixth form work, with students becoming house leaders and leading on those events as well. And we have our form time activities, our assemblies still continue to run in the sixth form, and there's plenty of mentoring and coaching as well that happens. So sixth form is not big year 11, it's very, very different, but some of those very strong aspects from year 11 we continue into year 12 as well, including the scope days, which are obviously sixth form specific when the students come into the sixth form. Next slide, please. Just to sorry, was I going to just flick on? Just to go some of the leadership opportunities, we do expect our sixth form students to be leaders within the school, and things like Duke of Edinburgh continue in the expeditions, but we also bring in things like Young Enterprise and Business Days, and heads of house are elected within the sixth form. And we also have a head girl team, so left on as head girl team, but has now been rebranded as a student leadership team. But we're just doing that transition at the moment, so I left it on there for the moment. We've got student laureates, we've got peer mentors. There's lots of opportunities for students in the sixth form to lead other students, and we think that's really important in terms of sort of nourishing the soul rather than just nourishing the academic brain of an individual. It's important they have those opportunities to do the other things that are really important within a school for young people to develop and pass that taxi test when they're later, and also to be happy through their time in our sixth form. Next slide, please. And just to go through some of the staff that we have a very strong sixth form team. So some of you will know Mrs. Sharp, who's our head of exams, who's also our head of year 13, who had a daughter actually go through our school a couple of years ago, and Mr. Johnston, who is our head of year 12 and also my assistant director of sixth form. And then next slide. And then we have 2 academic mentors. That transition from GCSE to sixth form, we don't want that to be difficult, so Mrs. Rosser and Mr. White will help with that. Mr. White also has a previous career that's very useful to tap into, because he helped to run some of the apprenticeships at IBM, and he's been doing a lot of work with our students who are interested in applying for apprenticeships as they become more and more available to school leavers, and they will help students with that transition into sixth form. And next slide, please. And then we also have Mr. Sanders, who was a partner in a Silver Circle law firm in London. So he also runs our law society for anybody interested in applying for law, but he also does some one-to-one coaching with students who might be finding sixth form life a little bit more difficult, and he's involved with some of the business competency work that we do through Young Enterprise, and developing that sort of entrepreneurship that we have in school. He'll also help with interview preparation as well, and anything to do with job applications after school. And even in school as well. And one of the things that David does, he also looks after students who've left a long time ago, because his other role at the moment is to teach on the law conversion course up in London, does 2 days a week doing that. And he certainly helps and guide any students at a university with their law conversion applications as well. So we've done quite a lot of work with students who've left. Tonight, when I finish here, I'm about to do a medical application for someone who left Surbiton High School 4 years ago. I've already done 2 of those in the last week. We will always provide careers of guidance for anybody who has come through the sixth form and has gone on to other study. We'll always be there providing that support and help if they need it. And next slide, please. OK, that brings us to questions. So I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Horwood, who is going to now put me on the spot, millionaire style. We'll see what happens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Owen. So I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is about UCAS applications. Obviously, people are looking far into the future here, which is great. So if a pupil has got any special considerations, any access arrangements like dyslexia or slower processing, obviously they get the extra time that they need at A-level, but will UCAS and universities take this into account with their offers?
OK, I was slightly hoping this hour would be a break from UCAS in the week, but it's come back to me. So in terms of UCAS applications, the universities will not change their offers for a learning challenge that a student might have. They will consider it possibly on results day if someone's a near miss, but they do expect that the actions that the school takes and the exam boards take provide that compensation. So the additional time. I should mention that we have a learning support outpost in the sixth form once a week running, supporting students directly. So we want that provision to be in the sixth form rather than somewhere else in the school. So that runs for us, but they won't make the adjustments there. Now, saying that, if you go for an interview, which is quite uncommon, and they give you a document to read, they will give you the additional time to read that. If you're applying for medicine, you'll get additional time for your admissions tests, and certainly you may type BMAT essays and things like that for medical applications. But the universities will expect that the field has been levelled, the playing field has been levelled by other mechanisms. If someone, however, has a disability or something that might make access to university learning particularly difficult, they'll make adjustments, and they will make significant adjustments when a student with, say, dyslexia turns up at the university to start, and they are very good. To give you an example, we had a student about 3 years ago who went through the sixth form who never read or wrote a single exam in the whole time she was in the school, because she could not read and write particularly well because of her dyslexia, and she went on to St Andrews to do medicine, and they made adjustments through the whole interview process and everything else that was required to secure that offer. So the university will make reasonable adjustments where necessary, but in terms of grades, the expectation is that will be done at school and exam board level.
Thank you very much. And then a question about the percentage of pupils applying for university. So what percentage apply to university, and if any don't apply to university, what do they go on to pursue?
Okay, that's a really good question. So the vast majority apply. I think most of them quite fancy 3 years away from home, not in a bad way, so I don't mean that. I think my son's doing that already. 3 years away from home, enjoying that time to study because they don't quite know what they want to do. A-levels don't often give you the answer of what you want to do. Most of us have ended up in careers we never sort of expected to be in, and that will chop and change. So the vast majority will apply to university. Some will take a gap year and apply a year later. We are starting to see more and more look at apprenticeships, and that is a growing number of interests, but sometimes our students will say, I'm not sure I want to just at this moment decide that I'm definitely going to do a law apprenticeship or an accounting apprenticeship. I want to keep things open. So most of our students at universities are keeping their options open going forward, and the vast majority apply. I mean, sort of 99% of them will apply. We have people join the Navy once in a while and a few other bits and pieces. But if they don't apply to university, they're applying to higher education of some format.
Excellent, thank you. And then I've got the classic question of homework. How much homework do A-levels require? Okay,
so are we talking homework or independent study? They're two very different things. Homework is what's set to you by your teacher. I'll be interested if that came from a student or a parent, actually, as a question. It's a question of how much is set by a teacher and how much do you need to do as well yourself, and that's two very different things. So you may get 3 hours a week per subject depending on the subjects you're doing, and that might come in quite a bit one week, a bit less the next week, but you should be using that time between lessons to reinforce and learn. A-levels are a marathon and not a sprint, and they cannot be left to the end. It's about ticking over and keeping things ticking over as you go along. So normally, around about 3 hours per subject per week, something like that, depending on the subjects that you're doing. Obviously, if you've got an essay 1 week from one subject, they may not give you an essay next week, whereas maths might tick you over every week, but a lower level, if that makes sense. So less each week, but more regular. So it depends on the subjects you're doing, but yes, it will be busy, and it will be busy between your lessons. But I would say that if you can use the time between your lessons effectively and efficiently, you can really take the edge off sixth form work. And it really is about treating school as a job that you start at 8:25, you might finish at 4, go home and do an hour or two. But if you're compacting that work in, you can find that you can work efficiently and smartly, and you can really keep those opportunities for co-curricular outside of school open. So we've got people rowing and playing hockey in very heavy training programs who are succeeding well through the sixth form because they compartmentalise their work into school time.
Perfect, thank you. And then I want to move over to Mrs. Glover if I can. I've got a couple of questions for you. The first one is around the size of the sixth form. Someone asked what size the year groups are. I have replied into the chat to say between 125 and 140, but obviously the current year 11 is a large year group, so I don't know if you have a further comment.
It is one of our larger year groups, so we are anticipating year 12 being slightly larger than previous years. As I say, the vast majority of girls do move on from year 11 into the sixth form, but the size of the sixth form varies depending upon the cohort going through, and you will know that year 11 is a relatively large, if not our largest cohort in school, so it will be slightly larger. We will accommodate for that by having more tutor groups. It won't be that the tutor groups will be any larger, we'll just have more tutor groups. And generally speaking, class sizes are relatively low, and if we have more girls opting for a particular subject, then we just add on another class rather than adding to the numbers in the class. So please don't be concerned that tutor groups and/or class sizes will be larger. We tend to keep the class sizes smaller at A level to get the better outcomes for the girls and a better experience for the girls. We have the capacity and the staffing to add additional classes on, so I have no concerns about class sizes and/or tutor groups.
Thank you. And then another question about some of those subjects that are slightly more niche, where fewer pupils might be interested in them, things like computing, history of art, the classics. Will we still run those subjects if only 2 or 3 pupils are interested?
Yeah, I think an ideal number is 3+, just so that you can have that debate and discussion. That said, I'm crucially aware that there are a small number of girls that will choose subjects that aren't as popular. We will put those subjects on if the girls have an interest in those subjects, particularly if they then want to carry them on to university. So if girls do choose computing and there are 1 or 2 pupils that choose it, then we will run computing, and the same for other subjects. So where possible, we will absolutely run the subjects.
And then I've got a question about the scholarship programme in the sixth form and how much it differs from the lower years. I don't know if you want to talk about the Oxbridge programme or we want to hand it over to John.
Yeah, we have a very robust Oxbridge programme that moves from year 11 into year 12 that is run by Terry McDermott and his team. John, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so there are certain subjects and certain pathways that are just more competitive than others, so you do need additional help and support when you're applying for those. So for instance, if you are interested in business and economics, you can go to Surbiton Sunrise on a Friday morning and you can get stretched and challenged in that environment. But for Oxbridge, it's a different setup that you need to get used to the tutoring mechanisms that are used in Oxbridge colleges. So we have a slightly different and separate process, but it doesn't mean that other subjects aren't supported. So for instance, if you're doing DT textiles, you'll spend hours in the DT textile room getting help and support in there. But Oxbridge is a particularly different animal, as the same way as medicine is as well. So with the Oxbridge programme, you'll have an Oxbridge tutor who'll meet with you, maybe you or one other person. It's quite nice doing it in pairs sometimes every week. To really do sort of stretch and challenge type activity, the sort of things you might get asked on interview for, and that's really the greatest strength of our Oxbridge programme, is that help. Things like personal statements, whatever subject you're doing, you'll get the same level of help and support, but it really is that mentoring that you get once a week. This is a great strength. In the same way that I see the medics every week or every other week, depending on what's going on in the timetable, they'll get support as well. But Oxbridge has a particular need that has to be done through tutoring, whereas DT has a particular need that needs to be fulfilled through time in the DT room, and English has a particular need that will be fulfilled through book clubs and other things. But the Oxford programme, particularly with mentoring, is what's necessary there.
Thank you. And then final couple of questions. John, how are the tutor groups decided? Okay,
so the tutor groups are slightly dependent on the subjects that you choose. I would advise you not to choose subjects to try and end up in the same tutor group. It's a very bad reason for doing it. I'd also, before I answer that, just point out that I calculated last year that about 4% of your school week is spent in your tutor groups. They do not have the same, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't have the same sort of, I can't remember. They're not as important as they are in year 11. I'm not often lost for words, but I was then. So they don't have the same importance they have in year 11, because you register in your tutor group and then you'll go off and use the common room or whatever else. Your tutor's really important because we try and link the tutor to the subjects you're doing at A level rather than clustering friends together, because in the long term that's a better thing to do. Equally, if you're in a tutor group and a friend is next door, then you can go and visit them. It's not a problem. It's much more fluid in terms of sixth form than it is in year 11, and people use the common room rather than form group areas. So the form groups are decided on timetable plus the tutor, and that's how they're worked out, rather than friendship groups, because it just doesn't work like that. But you can still absolutely spend a huge amount of time with your friends, you know, when you want to.
And I've had a couple of questions about US applications to university, and obviously we've got a huge amount of experience in that. I don't know if you want to say anything more.
I'm just in the middle. Well, once I dial out of here, I've got a few things to do, and I've got to do a Princeton application for somebody. So we do a few US applications every year, but I also want to point out that we also do Dutch applications, Korean applications. I've done applications to Hong Kong, South Africa. We do them all over Australia, wherever students want to apply to. Spain, we had someone go to Valencia last year to do vet science. So certainly, depending on where in the world you want to apply, it really is a one-to-one. Come and talk to us about where you want to apply to. US applications are very, very easy. The application process is simple, relatively. There's a few things we have to do on the common application system to do it, but it's really about college choices and things like that. They'll go through the careers department. But in terms of actual applications, they're pretty straightforward, and if you need help with those, just ask.
Right, this is going to be the final question, and hopefully it tees everything off nicely or finishes the evening nicely. How do we find out more about the content of each A-level subject? Is there a video or PowerPoint for each subject after this meeting?
So in the letter I sent out, there's a link to the website which has videos and content for every subject, so you can have a look at those either after this or over the next week or so. But you'll often hear me say this: throw the net wide to start with. There is real confirmation bias of I've heard about economics, I like the idea of economics, I've watched the video about economics, I'm doing economics. Don't start in that frame of mind. Think about the 10 subjects you might be interested in and watch each of those subjects, because I think that's really important that you keep that net wide, because there will certainly be subjects you may never have considered that will be really of interest to you. So try and again think about what you're interested in, where your strengths lie, and keep that net really wide. I think if you asked us as teachers things like history of art, I'd love to do history of art, I'd love to do business. They are just fascinating A-levels, and because you haven't done them at GCSE, they might not naturally grab your attention. So throw that net wide, watch as many videos as you can, and remember this is only the starting point, because when you come to see us for one-to-one meetings, we'll be saying to you, have you considered, have you looked at? So we'll help you keep that net wide as well. But if you watch those videos, certainly as the year goes by, Mrs. Horwood and I quite often arrange meetings with students in year 12 or 13 to meet year 11 students. There's plenty of opportunities to do that, but tonight watch the videos, start to get your eye in a little bit on what you might be interested on, and then over the next 6 months we'll work on those options with you.
That's the end of the questions, so
that segues us nicely into sending everybody off to watch the videos. I think I don't think anybody else wants to say at all. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for coming. So I think, Rebecca, were you going to jump in there? Were you shaking?
No, I was just saying, hand over to you to finish off, but I'm more than happy to. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. As Mr. Owen said, it is the start of an exciting process. We're absolutely here to support you and your daughters making the right choices for the sixth form. But for now, we'll leave you to watch the videos of the different subjects. And as Mr. Owen said, do cast the net wide, perhaps look at some of the subjects that you haven't already considered, just to get a flavour of what we do offer. Thank you so much.